Welcome back to Tungsten Tales. I'm Josh Green. I'm joined today by Laura Turner, former qualifier for the World Match Play and the WDF/BDO World Championships. How are you doing today, Laura?
Yeah, really good, Josh. Thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Thank you very much. We're a week or so removed now from the 2024 Women's World Match Play. 3 years now of that tournament. Can you quite believe it's all moved so quickly?
No. Like you say, I qualified for the first one, and whilst it feels like a while ago, it's just great to see how the game is just kind of progressing year on year. So yeah, hopefully, three and many more to come.
And a field this year where I think we went in and you looked at most of the players, the 8 players involved in that, and you really thought most of them had a reasonable chance of going on and winning that tournament.
Yeah, you're getting to a point now, especially when the women's series, and I've seen it on the Moda Super Series as well, because we had a dedicated women's week there. That actually all the players are now starting to, work out a way of beating each other. So obviously, Beau and Fallon and Lisa, they've been so dominant, throughout the women's series, especially. However, now you're just seeing, Beau has been beaten a few more times this year. So, like you say, it felt really quite open. If players all played to form, then yeah, it really was up for grabs for anyone. But that's the key thing. It's you don't get many opportunities on a stage like the Winter Gardens. It takes a lot to qualify, so it's actually just getting that big performance when you need it.
We'll move on to those sort of opportunities in a second, but Beau has been the best player this year. She's been the best player for probably 2 or 3 years now. She didn't really turn it on in the quarterfinals or the semi-finals, but really found her feet and her best form in that final, didn't she?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. It was like she was building up to it, wasn't it? Because I think she was saying in her pre-match chats that, the key thing, and it is for any player, is just to get across that line. It is just to go up there to win. And that's what she was making sure of. So she did that. But then when she actually relaxed into that last final, you could just see how brilliant she has been and what we all have to suffer on a regular basis to try and compete with when she's in the top form. So yeah, it was a fantastic final. And obviously Fallon was a huge part of that as well.
Was there any worry after those first 2 games that where you thought Beau might not be able to produce that top game after the performances in the quarters and the semis?
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, I think there's always that worry. I mean, we all know what everyone, like I say, we all know what everyone can produce up there. But when you haven't done it, then it can, you don't have a lot of time to recover. Obviously, with the men's match play or the open match play, then you do have a day or a day or two or three or something just to kind of recover from that match. Whereas this is a whole tournament done in one session. You don't have a huge amount of time to turn it around. So when it doesn't go well, that probably just shows a real big, her mental strength as well in the sport at the moment to be able to produce that kind of level after perhaps not finding her feet as quickly as she'd like.
How much do you think the women's series has done over the last 2 or 3 years? You've been very much a part of that. As you said, you obviously qualified for that first women's match play, and we're now seeing more and more women and in some cases young girls come through and play the sport of darts. I'm assuming you think that's been instrumental.
Oh, 100%. It's such a different arena to play in, obviously, not taking anything away from the other tournaments that we've played under the old BDO system, now the WDF, but to actually have that real professional environment where it's just you and the dartboard and the opposition, it's very conducive to playing some of your best darts. So that just being in that environment, I think, is one big thing. Obviously, then you've got the prize money, the opportunities to appear on Sky, either at the World Championships, the Grand Slam, and the World Match Play as well. I think that combination of factors, and also you go back to when Fallon won at the World Championships. I think that actually attracted a lot more younger players into the sport, and now they can see a real a way of kind of finding their footsteps within the sport, be it through the JDC and then moving into the women's series. So yeah, I think it's been great.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. Would there be any scope, do you think, to increase the amount of major events that the PDC are offering for the female players at the moment? You've obviously got the match play, which is the only all-female major, I guess we could call it, on the PDC circuit. But aside from that, they're competing with the men in things like the Grand Slam and the World Championships.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I think having the tournaments for the women is important. I think Beau highlighted the fact that she herself does enjoy playing alongside the women. She that's where she wants to play. So with that in mind, I do think there is. I think perhaps the UK Open could lend itself to something very similar, where you've obviously got a format where, on finals day, you kind of do two semi-finals. There's that short break in between, and then you have to go into the main UK Open finals. So with that multi-board system, I think that could be a great, platform where the women could perhaps have a separate version of the tournament. Obviously, it's for the powers that be to decide, but yeah, if there were more opportunities of playing in front of big crowds, in front of, or on bigger stages, then I can only think that will allow the women to get a lot more comfortable in that situation.
Do you believe that that's one thing that the women in the PDC system especially are missing, just that stage experience and exposure?
I think it's a big thing. I know I can only speak from my personal experience, I guess, but it takes a lot of hard work to actually get into a position to qualify for these tournaments. Once you get there, you want to be able to put your best foot forward. You want to play your best darts, and timing is everything. And sometimes, that pressure of just trying to perform right then and now, you don't know if that opportunity is going to come back up again. For me, for example, I haven't managed to requalify for the world match play. So yeah, there is that kind of additional pressure of trying to make the most of it, because you don't always know when the next one's when it's gonna come along. So yeah, I think the more exposure you can get to these big stages, then perhaps the more normal it will feel, and then you'll have. I guess when I started playing, even on the women's series, just getting used to being on Dart Connect and in that environment, that took a lot of time. And now we walk in and we don't think twice about it. So maybe that does speak for something.
You mentioned about Beau's comments earlier. It was a really interesting and quite an insightful interview that she gave after winning that World Match Play title. She talked about the fact that she enjoys playing the other women's tournaments, but maybe doesn't quite enjoy playing in the mixed tournaments, whether that be the Grand Slam on the development tours and things like that. And that would be a reason why she's decided not to pursue the PDC World Championship and go and defend her Lakeside World Championship instead. What did you sort of make of the comments?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's very much down to an individual preference, because I know there'll be other players that if they got the opportunity of one or the other, then they would opt for the Ali Pali. However, she's a reigning world champion. She's the women's world champion. It's the only women's world championship, dedicated one. And I completely understand the desire to go back and try and to defend a title that you've won. And she's been quite open and transparent about that, from the start. Ultimately, it's her decision. I think she manages her time, her tournaments. I think what she does what she wants to do, and it's paying dividends. You can't argue with the kind of results that she produces, the averages, the way she plays. So it's important for players to feel comfortable, and if that's where she feels most comfortable and where we're going to see the best of her, then she's what, still 20. Mm-hmm. I think got plenty of years on her side. You just don't know in the sport, but I think for me, I think every player has to do what is right for them, and Beau's made it quite clear that that's the path that she would like to take. And I honestly just enjoy watching her play.
Yeah, she also sort of spoke about the fact that she doesn't believe that female players of this generation anyway would be able to mix it with the top men in the game. She sort of referenced Luke Humphries, Michael Smith. I think she referenced Luke Littler as well, who's obviously come through over the past couple of years. Do you see there being a point where there can be a number of women on the tour competing at the top end?
I'd like to think so. I genuinely would, and I completely understand where Beau is coming from in terms of the numbers of now being posted by the likes of like the top 16 in the PDC rankings compared to like the top 16 of the women. I can totally understand what she's saying. I think for me, Beau is she is the best female player that I've ever seen in terms of how she plays, the numbers she posts. If she's saying that, then obviously you've got to sit up and actually listen, because I think, to me, she can make inroads into it. However, it's how she feels and what she wants to do at the same time. Yeah, it's a complicated one, because obviously, my heart, I think, and a lot of women's hearts will say, yeah, of course we can, and I think perhaps it goes to the fact it may develop and evolve over time as things start to kind of progress and keep going in the right direction on the women's series, as we start posting more averages, seeing higher things. Consistency is key, and I think winning the tournaments that have been spoken about, as in the World Championships, when it was in reference to what Beau was saying, that's a lot of consistency over a very long format. And that's probably something that we're not necessarily always exposed to. You think on the women's series, and even at the World Match Play, you're playing best of 7. You compare that to the longer formats, that's probably when it becomes a bit more tricky and we get a bit more unstuck. But even when Fallon did it, we saw her make the quarterfinals of the Grand Slam and played at such a consistent average against Peter Wright in that quarterfinal. So it's not beyond the realms of impossibility, but I think there's work, there's more work to be done.
Is it good to see another top player and a sort of a very notable name in Beau be another spokesperson for women's darts? I know you've done your bit with that. Fallon's obviously done a huge amount as well. It's important that these names and these faces sort of push the game as much as possible.
Yeah, definitely. I think the more people that can, be recognised, within the sport, it just helps the sport to grow more. I think having Beau as well, one, she's the world champion, she's the 2-time world match play champion. She has the right to speak, and say what she needs to say. So yeah, definitely. And I think to get the exposure, to get women's darts out there again, it's just another kind of way of trying to get more people involved, because I think that's the other thing. Compare the numbers of women that play compared to the numbers of men that play. If we can show women out there and girls that this is a viable option, this is a great sport to be involved in, look at our champions, look at Fallon, look at Lisa, Makuru, Beau, there's so many. I'm going to miss names off and I'll get told off by them afterwards, but Anastasia, great to see her back as well. So that there's lots of names there, and all who have done a lot for women's sport over the women's darts over the years. So yeah, the more the merrier as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. I know at the last women's series events, there were sort of creeping closer to that 100 mark of women entering those events. What's it like as an experience? Just run me through what a women's series event is like to be a part of.
Yeah, it's great. I think we've kind of it's very similar to the men, I guess. So when we turn up, obviously, get there nice and early, register, settle in, get your practice in. Obviously everyone's on tenterhooks waiting for the draw because we all want to be on the other half of Beau, let's be honest. But also just seeing, because it's in the WDF system and the old BDO system, it was always ranked, so you knew your top 8, 16, 32 players, so you kind of knew who was avoiding other people. So that's always quite fun to see, like some of the really big clashes early on in the draws and things. And yeah, it's just very much, head on. As I say, it's a really good environment to play in, so you want to make the most of it, you want to do well, and yeah, just hopefully play well enough to get picked to go onto the stream at one point as well.
You're obviously watching on from the commentary booth at this year's Women's World Match Play. How much is there a desire to get back on that Blackpool stage?
Yeah, that's twofold. I'll be honest. I do like the comfort of the commentary box. As mentioned, my performance levels, especially on a big stage, are not always the best. I get very kind of worked up, anxious about it, because I want to do well, obviously, and I want to be able to showcase what women's darts is. And I think a lot of us, we probably put on a bit too much pressure to kind of show why we're there, as opposed to actually concentrate and just get on and play the game. So I've identified certain problems, but yeah, I'd love to get back on there. I mean, it's such an iconic stage, and obviously the first experience just went by in seconds, mostly because I was beaten 4-1. So but I got a leg, I'll take the leg and then I'll come back hopefully and build on that. But it is about that, it's about building on experiences and kind of identifying where it went wrong maybe the first time, coming back and just trying to be stronger.
Yeah, perfect. Well, appreciate the time, Laura. Best of luck with everything you've got coming up. I know you're busy as always, and we'll catch up soon, in a darts venue somewhere.
Absolutely. Thanks, Josh.